I'm Chuck Stuber, and I'm a member of Highland United Methodist Church. And these are my parents, Charlie and Marilyn Stuber, and they've been members of Highland for over 60 years. Dad, can you tell us what initially brought you and Mom to Highland back in the early 60s?
First, I want to tell you that what I'm going to be speaking about will really apply to both Marilyn and me because all of the activities that were involved with or have been involved with at Highland were pretty much shared responsibilities. And it may sound like I did them all, but certainly Marilyn was a very big part of most of them. As far as how we got interested in Highland, I was a graduate student at NC State when we came to North Carolina, and several of the faculty members that I was dealing with were involved in organizing Highland Church in 1954, and they invited me to come to the church. Also, the pastor at that time, Al Fisher, paid us a visit. He was the second pastor for Highland Church out of 14 pastors, and we had been a part of the church for 13 of those 14 pastors. The only pastor we were not involved with was Brooks Patton. Also, I should point out that Chuck at that time was a little guy about a year and a half old, and we had heard of the reputation of Leela Mann, who was in charge or very active in the preschool, Sunday school, and we knew that her reputation was outstanding, and we thought that would be a very good opportunity for Chuck to be involved in.
What was Highland like when you joined in the early 1960s?
Well, Highland was just a small growing church then. I think the membership was probably less than 400, and we didn't have a sanctuary. We met in the conference room for church services. The sanctuary was built in the later 1960s, and we were actually certainly involved in that, but it was a growing church and a young church, and the spread of ages was much different than it is now. Now, you know, the predominant age is probably over 60 or 65. Then it was probably in the 20s or 30s, maybe, maybe a little older.
Can you recall some significant events in the history of Highland?
Most significant events were probably building the structure, the sanctuary, and then later on we built the education wing, and then Bradley Hall was, I think, completed in '92. So the church has had a lot of building projects, and we've been part of all of those. And I've been involved in campaigns for raising money for several of those. And the mission activities and so forth are also, as I would say, one of the strong points of the church.
What are some of the most significant activities and ministries that you and Mom have been involved in while you've been at Highland?
Well, the activities that Mom and I have been involved in have been numerous, but I would say that two that I would single out that we probably spent the most time with and were most interested in were first our Sunday school class. When we joined the church, the fellowship class is what our class is called now. At that time it was called the Young Married class. And it is the only class in the church that has survived the whole history of the church. And now a good share of the members are over 90 years old. The discussions and the lessons and so forth that we had in our Sunday school class were very instrumental in developing our faith. And also the Sunday school class was a very strong support group for us over the years, and we have a lot of good memories from that class. The other activity that I would like to single out is the senior adult ministries. Marilyn and I were involved with that for many years, and the objective of that ministry was largely to give the senior adults some very interesting and spiritual activities fellowship activities. We had luncheons at least once a month, most of the year, but many of the activities were not in the church itself. We took many trips on Nancy Cave's tour bus to parts all over the southeast, clear down into Georgia, into Tennessee, the Amish country in Ohio and Pennsylvania, and all the way up to New York, and visited the West Point activity there, and also visited CIA there. I say that we had many very good memories from those trips, and they weren't just for Highlanders. We invited members from a number of other churches, Catholics, Moravians, Presbyterians, and so forth, and so it was pretty much an ecumenical group, and we had a lot of fellowship and good experiences.
It sounds like you did and saw a lot of interesting things through your Highlanders. And Mom, your Sunday school class was an amazing blessing in your lives, wasn't it?
It was.
Absolutely. Dad, you've served in on many committees and in many different capacities at Highland. And would you like to describe some of the work that you've done for Highland that's been the most meaningful for you?
I probably served on every committee in the church. If I didn't, my wife Marilyn did. I was chair of the Green Committee when we were trying to get more green activities. The solar system on top of the Bradley Hall, that we replaced all of the toilet stools in the church with low water toilet stools and saved enough water to pay a good share of the monthly bill.
I think you mentioned that you've known 13 of the 14 pastors senior pastors at Highland, and it's got to have been interesting for you over the years to see the different various personalities of the fine people that have served in the capacity of senior pastor. Would you like to talk about any of the pastors in particular?
Well, I could make a few comments, but I probably shouldn't in this environment. I mean, we loved them all, but we loved them for different reasons, and that's about as far as I'll go. Let's say they all did their job a little bit differently.
Right. Well, variety's the spice of life.
Right.
What do you see as your legacy at Highland?
Well, I hope that my legacy will be the service that we provided with the various activities in the church and mission activities and what have you. From a financial standpoint, we always supported the general fund very heavily, but we also felt it was very important to help with the Habitat for Humanity and UMCOR and other mission activities at the church. The more recent thing that we funded was 2 significant charitable gift annuities. These annuities are funded through the Methodist Conference, and during our lifetime they will pay us an income. Once we're gone, then the remainder of the annuity will go to Highlands Endowment Fund, and it's something I think that most of our seniors ought to consider, because I think it's a good source of retirement income, and it's also a good source of income for the Highland Endowment, so it's a win-win situation.
Well, thank you, Mom and Dad, for sharing your insights and experiences from being members of Highland for over 60 years. Thank you again for your comments today.
Well, thank you for what you and Janet are doing too.
Well, we try our best to serve, to continue your legacy of service for Highland.